Hello everyone, welcome to another GTA 3 video. Thanks to everyone who watched the last video about version 1.40. Really appreciated the amazing response that video received. So here's some more GTA content for you. This time we're going to talk about the one weird thing about the Rhino in the game. And that one weird thing is that when you spawn a Rhino via the cheat, it will forever stay in memory. This means that it will never disappear from the map. This is something that doesn't happen, to my knowledge, in any other GTA game. In the sequel, Vice City, there's still a cheat to spawn a tank, but it behaves the same as any other vehicle in this regard. If you ditch it and drive another vehicle and move far enough away, it'll despawn. But on GTA 3 this will not happen. I'm sure that most people will know this already, but to prove it, I've spawned a Rhino, as you can see. And now I'm travelling to the other side of the city and back again, and it will certainly still be there. And here we are back at Trenton, I think we're in, and the Rhino is still there. So as I say, most of you will probably know this, so the video becomes less about, wow, check out this amazing thing you can do, and more about what we can actually do with this. The first thing I wanted to check out was how many Rhinos can you spawn before the game simply cannot handle anymore. And so I set about spawning more and more tanks. I remember trying this when I was younger on an actual console, and I remember spawning around 10, I think, before the game crashed. And here we are several years later trying it on an emulator, and let me tell you, I spawned more and more of these things and the game just kept on complying. In the end, I'd spawned 22 tanks before I decided to give up. Just look at this, have you ever seen so many Rhinos in one spot before? When I did this, some interesting side effects occurred. I went for a drive around and there was no traffic, none at all. This is likely because all the Rhinos are taking up all the game's memory and there's none left to spawn traffic in. Although the parked cars were still around. This is like the Ghost Town glitch that you can perform on the PC version of the game. I once made a tutorial for this glitch which I'll link in the description, which is not to be confused with the location of Ghost Town, which features in the game's intro of course. This extends to the missions as well. It's not like the traffic just spawned back in once a mission began. This was intriguing more than anything, but it does make missions slightly quicker and easier. What was stranger though was when I did a mission that gives you a wanted level, the police didn't spawn either. Obviously the peds are still around, so you could still encounter a cop on foot probably. But yeah, no cop cars or SWAT vans to be seen. Also, shout out to the ambulance, a great pick for Van Heist. So at this point I thought I'd better bring the traffic back if we're going to carry on with this video. So, how do you get rid of a car that won't despawn? Well, the Rhino is bulletproof and explosion proof, but it's not fireproof or damage proof. And it doesn't like being dropped into the sea either. So I lined them up like one big Rhino centipede, and just look how many tanks there are here. I tried to push them into the sea, and honestly, I don't really know why I thought this would work. They're all just too heavy to push at once, of course. So, let's just set them on fire instead. And once I'd done that, the traffic returned, as did the cops. Okay, let's see how we can affect some of the game's missions by introducing a few Rhinos. Turismo, for example. Let's create a big wall of tanks for the AI's naff pathfinding to try to negotiate. Here they come, and boom! Get absolutely wrecked. Some delightful backflips from the cheater there. With the third guy even veering off towards the safe house. I also decided to pop a Rhino around the back of Luigi's club. I had to fly it in there since it won't fit all the way through the alleyway. I just think that it's funny how you can get a tank involved in a cutscene, when any other car would actually be despawned by the game. And like, there's this bit where the textures just look like they're parting, and you can see claws start to appear, It is just beautiful. On Dead Skunk in the Trunk, don't you just get annoyed with the Ferrelli brothers? They just smash you up in their much faster cars, unless you take them out first. But why take them out when you can put them in tank prison? I decided to put up these little fortresses just for a laugh and see if they could get out. And to be fair, one of them nearly did, but we can't have that. So I decided to chuck a grenade in. I also decided to park a Rhino in Mama's Ristorante, which again I had to fly in. I just love how Tony and Claude are just chatting, and there's a random Rhino just chilling in the background. And now we come to Salvatore's Called a Meeting, which was one of the most interesting missions to play around with using the Spawn a Rhino cheat. The first thing I wanted to try with this mission was to put up these walls of rhinos, see if I could stop the Triad fish vans from attacking the limo. But oops, I parked the limo a bit too close to the tanks and Tony struggled to get in. But don't worry guys, after a while he just teleported inside the car. Crisis averted. Now at first this worked as expected, where the Triads couldn't break through our defensive lines. But after just a short time they basically just gave up. They're not actually trying to break through anymore, so I went to see what was going on. As I got closer, I could see that they just got out of their vans and were just pacing around. When I got close, this guy started shooting, but he still didn't get back inside his van. But uh-oh, one of them actually managed to get in. But when I got close, he too just got out. Next, I tried placing a Rhino in front of Joey's garage. And check this out. In the cutscene, Claude drove into the Rhino, then reversed back so far that he went through the floor and into blue hell. Then the limo respawned around the back of the garage and Claude drove back around to the front, all in the cutscene. You can see that the limo still has its proofings during the cutscene too, as it's not taking any damage. I also decided to build a wall of tanks for the mission Chaperone. And check this out. The cutscene with the SWAT van begins, and the van coming from the top of the hill can't get down. Then the cutscene ends, and it all seems normal-ish. But then the game goes back into the cutscene. Keep your eye on the left. The SWAT van that appeared at the bottom during this brief moment where the cutscene ended has now disappeared. And a new one has come along. Meanwhile, this guy is having a tough time and even almost ends up in the water. I would have liked to have seen what would happen if it was destroyed. Check the left again. A second SWAT van has now arrived at the bottom. Now this guy is stuck on a little hill and a third SWAT van arrives at the bottom. So that's 4 SWAT vans in total when there should really be only 2. So we've got twice the amount of cops. Good job they've only got pistols. Sayonara Salvatore was another really interesting one to play around with. My first idea was to block the entrance to the alleyway at Luigi's Club. You can just see the mafia guys all confused, like, why is there a tank here? Check this out, by the way. Shot off the roof by a mafioso with a shotgun. That looked awesome. So then I get back to the club and Salvatore, for some reason, is just walking into the Rhino again and again. I don't know where he's trying to get to, and he's not even bothered by me being there. Next, I blocked Salvatore's garage with some more tanks. Look at them trying to get in vain. At this point I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we urged them to take a trip down to the beach? In general, I feel like this is one of the missions you can be really creative with. There are videos on YouTube of people wasting Salvatore in like 100 different ways, etc. Anyway, so we knock them down to Portland Beach. I run back to get a car, go back, and they're all out of the Mafia Sentinel, which has now disappeared. And they're just stood there. Let's take out the bodyguards so we can have some more fun. One of the most interesting things about this mission is that Salvatore can jack a car and chase you down. Now, does that extend to a Rhino tank? Let's find out. Let's entice him to chase us. And here we go. Will he get into the Rhino? The answer is yes. That is Salvatore in a tank right there. But the best is yet to come. He just drove into the cliffs for ages before reversing really fast and right into the sea. Is that a brand new way of completing this mission? Well, I hope so. Okay, Two-Faced Tanner next. Let's build a wall of rhinos to stop him getting through. Surprisingly, he actually made some progress in pushing his way out. It looks like he would have actually made it, so let's just put a stop to that, shall we? And check this out, look at him run. As a reminder, Tanner has the female running animation in this mission. Essentially, this whole mission is a mockery of Driver, and obviously Tanner being the name of the protagonist from the Driver series. But in trying to waste Tanner, I accidentally blew up the Rhino and finished the mission, sadly. Okay, silence the sneak. You guys know the drill. Let's block the garage with tanks and see what happens. Well, all the cops got out the Sentinel and wandered around. And we can also take a closer look at McCaffrey. Let's blow up his Sentinel and take him with it. But then I had another idea. I started the mission again and intentionally failed it by letting McCaffrey get away. I then took a Rhino and parked it into the open garage, not all the way, but halfway in. I then started the mission again and ran back to see the Rhino keeping the garage door open. But what this means is that McCaffrey and his Sentinel don't actually spawn in when the mission begins. They only spawn once you throw a grenade through the open window, or use a rocket launcher of course. Also, this garage door behaves like the ones at your safe house. If a car prevents it from closing, it'll just open all the way back up again. When the Sentinel spawns, it now does so on top of the Rhino and flips on its side as a result. Oh, by the way, you know the mission Evidence Dash where you have to chase a bobcat around Staunton Island? And crash into it a bunch of times so it drops pieces of evidence? Well, did you know that you can just blow it up with a Rhino and instantly pass the mission? Yep. I also wanted to see if the Rhino has any use on Plaster Blaster. And while it did do a lot of damage to the cast the first time I hit it, I then couldn't really get it to work again. In general, causing damage to the plaster cast is pretty inconsistent and unpredictable. Another fun mission to play around with was Liberator, where you rescue the old Oriental gentleman from the cartel compound. I spawned several Rhinos for this mission, and in doing so, I despawned all the traffic again. Interestingly though, the number of peds seemed to really increase. I didn't get any footage of this, but I did get a quick screenshot. Weird. Anyway, so I took the tanks in one by one and parked them all in the garages once they opened. Also, check out this glitch I found by accident. You can jump on top of a tank and go through the roof of this garage. I then finished the mission and headed back to the compound. Usually all the garage doors shut after the mission is finished. But check this out. By spawning loads of rhinos and putting them in each garage, they all stayed open even after the mission was finished. Decoy now. In this mission, you have to lead the police away from the warehouse. But instead of running away, I built a defensive wall of tanks. Now, as I say, you do have to get away from the warehouse to complete this mission. But just for science, I decided to see how long it would take the cops to break through. The problem with this strategy was that it didn't stop the helicopters from shooting the Securicar. So I had to keep moving back and forth like this, which isn't really in the spirit of the game, to be fair. But still, an enforcer did actually manage to break through in the last few seconds of the mission. I then tried it again, whereby I would use the strategy for most of the mission, and then just run away near the end. Perfect. For Love's Disappearance, I had the idea of flying a Rhino up to Donald Love's rooftop garden, so I could get it involved in the cutscene. And there it is. Claude's attention may be on the open chest, but I love how there's a random Rhino sat right behind it. A marked man, I wanted to see what would happen if I blocked the entrance to the airport, and predictably Ray was just stuck running around. So yeah, that's not one that I would recommend trying. And lastly for the missions, I decided to get a Rhino involved in the cutscene for the exchange. I love how Catalina's face just pops through the Rhino's textures, just beautiful.
Muy pequeñito, amigo. Throw over the cash.
And so I thought, if you could place a Rhino anywhere you wanted across Liberty City, you could hide it somewhere and play a city-wide game of hide and seek. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to take 6 Rhino tanks and hide them across Portland, Staunton and Shoreside. 2 on each island. Then I'm going to upload my save game for you guys to download and try to find them all. And there will be a prize for whoever finds them all first. Honestly, I can't be sure whether it's going to work without issues, but I'm just going to try it and see what happens. So look out for my next video, which will contain all the details about this competition. Until then, thanks for watching, see you next time.